Good morning. Today we will check what exactly breaks down in the Bavarian brand's limousine and which versions give hope for relatively trouble-free operation. Before we get to that, I will add that F01 and F02 are the most common designations of the BMW 7 of this generation, but not the only ones. The manufacturer also used the F03 and F04 codes. The first one concerned factory armored cars, and the second one the 8-cylinder active hybrid model from 2010 to 2012. Its 6-cylinder successor from 2012 to 2015 was again F01 or F02, depending on the wheelbase. And one last traditional note, this entry, like all other such text on Autoblog, is not a typical buyer's guide. You won't read about the pros and cons of the cars described here. We are focusing on failures, both those resulting from an unfinished design and those caused by users, but occurring so often that it is difficult to ignore them. However, this does not mean that every fault listed will appear in every such car. It is simply that the risk of its occurrence is higher, and this must be taken into account. Is everything clear? Let's start. The first category, and already a lot of interesting things, the least bothersome of which is water flowing from the boot lid into its compartment when we need to use this part of the car during rain. In addition, there are numerous electrical and electronic faults in the BMW 7 F01/F02, including problems of all kinds, from loose contacts, through the non-functional automatic boot lid opening function and non-functional seat settings memory, to damaged/worn displays. It happened that even in almost new cars they required replacement under warranty due to inactive pixels. Many bad things have been written about the soundproofing by users of such cars. Not only are there unwanted noises coming from the dashboard area, but the unfinished aerodynamics of the exterior mirrors also contribute. Against this background, the poorly soundproofed area around the tank, from which you can hear a splash after filling up with more fuel, seems like an insignificant trifle. I came across some other, somewhat surprising information. Someone had a problem with the passenger side turn signal, which would come loose when driving at speeds over 200 kilometers per hour and hang on the wires while driving, hitting the bodywork. I would like to believe that this is an isolated incident, but the information that the turn signal was replaced not once, but twice, bothers me a bit. Perhaps the turn signal mount was improved in some way later. Or maybe this person was just exceptionally unlucky. The funniest, or most annoying, depending on whether you own a BMW 7 F01 or not, problem was that the garage door remote control for many people did not work with the Climate Comfort windscreen. I did not find its factory name. In English, it is usually described as Climate Comfort. This is funny because this type of glass in BMW since 2003, when it was introduced to the offer in the 5 and 7 series, does not have metal layers like the older type solutions, but plastic layers. Specifically, it is about 500 super thin layers of plastic, each with a thickness of 0.00001 millimeters, which gives a total of 0.005 millimeters of plastic. Their task is to limit the heating of the vehicle's interior. In a press release regarding this solution, BMW praised that the new windows do not in any way limit the connectivity of various systems, from mobile telephony to satellite navigation. However, the garage door control lost this battle, and service centers advised nervous customers to replace the window with a regular one. It should be added here that the most written about this type of problem was over 10 years ago. Perhaps since then the problem has been somehow solved, at least in some cars or garages. On the other hand, it must also be remembered that this BMW model could even have all the windows of the Comfort Climate type, not just the front one, which was also an option in most versions. Noise, noise, noise everywhere. This is the problem that is most often reported by people driving BMW 7 series of this generation. Unwanted noises come from both the front and rear suspension. Some of these sounds were caused by faulty front axle stabilizers. They were replaced under warranty. Despite this, creaking, squeaking, and other sound effects accompany many BMW F01/F02 models on a daily basis. What's more, such problems are also reported by drivers using their cars in Germany on the very good roads there. In addition, the dynamic drive system, which works by preventing body roll, active stabilizers are responsible for this, causes problems. BMW 7 fans generally agree that when dynamic drive is working, it significantly improves the car's handling, but the system's failure rate is above average. Oil leaks and sensor failures do occur, for example. It should be noted that DD requires the rest of the suspension to be in good condition as well. If it is not, it will either accelerate the system's failure, or at least prevent it from working properly in some conditions. As for the suspension itself, the main problem in the F01/F02 are the front wishbone bushes. In the F segment, powerful petrol engines are a common choice. There is just one catch. The BMW 7 Series of this generation did have V8 and even V12 versions in its range, but all of these versions are suitable for testing resilience to unexpected expenses. All the more so the older the car in question is. The V8 biturbo N63B44 750i 750Li deserves special attention here, as its compact design and great performance do nothing to compensate for how terribly unreliable and underdeveloped this engine is. Autoblog once published a separate article about this engine. You can find it here. In short, leaky injectors, engine seizures, oil burning, piston ring damage, and so on. Some of the problems are caused by the huge amounts of heat generated by this engine, some by too long periods between oil changes, it should be changed at least every 10,000 kilometers, and some by other types of design or construction errors. The N63B44TU units offered since the facelift are definitely better, which does not mean they are perfect. The risk of a failure that would immobilize the car has been significantly reduced here. The power of the TU version is 449 HP, compared to 408 HP of the pre-modernization version. As I wrote above, choosing the 544 horsepower V12 unit N74B60 in the BMW 760i and 760Li does not mean greater reliability, even if we assume that the previous owner took better care of the car than his wife and spared no expense in its operation and maintenance. Here too, problems are caused by the injectors, as well as the high-pressure fuel pump. It gives no warning before failure. It simply breaks down suddenly. Wastegate valves and turbochargers, the latter mainly when the aforementioned valves give out first. The water pump, it can break down even after 80,000 kilometers. Ignition coils, cooling system hoses. Oh, and a failure of one of the two engine control units takes the entire cylinder bank out of service. There are still inline six-cylinder engines. In the years 2008 to 2012, the 326 horsepower N54B30 engine with twin turbocharger was used, later replaced by the 320 horsepower N55B30 engine with a single turbocharger and Valvetronic variable valve lift. Despite slightly lower power, the newer models are in practice slightly faster, 5.7 seconds to 100 kilometers per hour, instead of the previous 5.9 to 6.0 seconds. Not only do they reach maximum power and torque in a slightly wider rev range, but they also have an 8-speed gearbox, while pre-facelift cars had to make do with 6 gears. The N54B30 engines can be safely skipped. They have basically the same problems as the V8 and V12. The only reason they are slightly cheaper to run is lower fuel consumption and fewer parts to replace in the engine. Of all the petrol engines in the BMW 7 F01/F02, the only option that gives real hope for relatively problem-free operation is the N55B30-. You can still encounter failures of the water pump, high-pressure fuel pump, or ignition system components, and leaks can also be encountered, but at least the injector issue has been dealt with. Spare parts are not exceptionally expensive either, but timely, reliable service is still required. Somewhat unusually for this segment, this generation of the 7th had number 8-cylinder diesel engines available. All the units, from the 730D to the 750D, are different variants of the N57 engine. The weakest versions are the 245 horsepower N57D30OL, 258 HP after the facelift, with a single turbocharger. Then we have the 306 and 313 horsepower N57D30 TOP versions with twin turbocharging, and at the top of the range is the N57D30S1 with 3 turbochargers, reaching 381 horsepower. Although the N57 engines are one of the better options compared to the rest of the BMW sedan engine range, you can't expect any revelations in terms of reliability and durability, especially if someone fondly remembers the old M57 engines. On the other hand, the N57s are better than the four-cylinder N47s, but overall this is not a particularly difficult condition to meet. First of all, the timing drive is fortunately durable. This is important because it is located on the gearbox side, so replacement requires removing the engine. The coolant level must be checked. It sometimes disappears, and it is also worth checking whether the car in question has taken part in a service campaign involving the replacement of a faulty EGR exhaust gas recirculation valve. If not, this should be done immediately. Faulty EGR valves have caused a number of fires in BMWs with these engines. Oh, but don't think that this relieves you of your vigilance. Some cars have also burned after the service campaign. N57 engines are also sensitive to fuel quality and overheating. Information on the impact of the number of turbochargers on the reliability of these diesels is scarce, but, and this should come as no surprise to anyone, the cheapest to service and potentially least problematic will be the simpler versions, with single or twin turbocharging. According to some sources, the 740D, 740LD, or bi-turbo models are considered more durable. Surprisingly, perhaps this is due to the fact that, thanks to their better performance, drivers push them less. The 730D, 730LD models seem to be a bit too weak for the weight of the car. This is also reflected in fuel consumption, which in the 730D is not lower than in the 740D. In fact, it can be higher. Both before and after the facelift, hybrid versions could be found in the 7 Series range. Before the modernization, the manufacturer used the active hybrid 7 engine, COVALENTN63B144, that horribly unsuccessful V-8. You have to dig deep, even though the power of 465 HP is tempting. Every BMW 7 Series F01/F02/F03/F04 has an automatic gearbox. The V12 used 8-speed gearboxes from the beginning to the end. The 8-cylinder active hybrid 7 variant also had 8 gears in 2010. The remaining engine versions had to make do with 6 gears until the facelift, 2012. Since mid-2012, all BMW 7 Series had 8 gears. Automatics are one of the brighter points in the car's design. They are manufactured by ZF, and in principle, you shouldn't expect any unusual faults here. Regular oil changes would certainly be welcomed by the gearbox. As for the drivetrain, the BMW 7 Series of this generation could have rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive, called X-Drive, was standard only in the 381 horsepower diesel. It was optionally offered in the 750i, 750Li V8, petrol and bi-turbo diesels, and in the 258 horsepower single-turbo diesel, but only in the short wheelbase version. The truth is, however, that if someone wants such a car, they will buy it anyway. In this segment, even when we are talking about used vehicles, it is much less common for someone to even consider more than one model. That's why choosing the right engine version is critically important. In fact, it would be a good idea not to bother with a pre-facelift BMW 7 at all, especially petrol ones. Generally buy yourself a bi-turbo diesel from the end of production. That makes some sense. However, if you must, you absolutely must buy the car I tried to warn you about. Let me know how it performs. Additional task: no swearing. And if you know of any common errors, your comments are welcome.